situations, you would have to wait for somebody. You don't anticipate the death. That appears to be the deeper meaning. And I think that is what most African states, that is what most African personalities would do. You do not anticipate your death. You serve until the Lord comes for you. The other deeper meaning would mean that matters of life, matters of when you're going to serve your tier of duty in this world, are issues beyond you. That appears to me to be the deeper meaning, that is the deeper impression of that proverb. And therefore, if these are issues that are beyond you, then you do not have any business trying to stave off or trying to overdo yourself. Thank you.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yep. I didn't see that meaning there.
Yeah.
No, there it is.
There it is. It's a good one. When someone says you're a land lawyer, what do you mean exactly?
Thank you very much. Lawyers in this country, generally with a degree in law, are trained on matters of how to deal with land, how to secure the interests of landowners, and how to ensure that there are clients, how to ensure that transactions on land are secure. At the nature level, you may decide as a practitioner to pursue knowledge, to pursue practice, to concentrate on matters of land. If you decide to practice on matters of land, you're going to court on matters of land, you're concentrating in conveyancing, concentrating in ensuring that purchasers of land have secured their titles, banks have secured their interests, then you may qualify as a land lawyer out of practice. There are those people who, instead of concentrating on practice of land matters to become land lawyers, may also decide to take up teaching land law in the university, in colleges and other institutions, so that every morning, every evening, every afternoon, they are teaching, they are researching on matters of land. So I think there are two perspectives of telling who is a land lawyer. This is a person who concentrates in the practice of law in the strict sense, in what he does every morning, every afternoon, every evening, or by way of teaching and researching more on land law. I am the first one. I practice a lot of land law in my litigation, in cases that I file and prosecute in court, and what I do for my clients, I do a lot of land law, and therefore I qualify to be a land lawyer.
What kind of cases would present themselves then that needed to be adjudicated in the court of law? What kinds of things are we looking at that would arise in some kind of conflict?
Thank you very much. A lot of times, and this is the situation now in the Environment and Land Court in Kenya, a lot of times we have matters to do with ownership. These are the bulk of cases, these are the heavy cases that deal with land. For example, you might find a situation where somebody is saying, I bought this land, I purchased this land, I paid, we did a sale agreement, but if it's an agricultural land in Kenya, for example, there are a number of requirements that you are supposed to meet. Number one, you need to ensure that if you're purchasing land, let's say, for example, in Machakos, if you're purchasing land, let's say, for example, in Kajiado, before it's transferred to you, even after the sale agreement has been done, even after you've paid, you're supposed to secure consent from the Land Control Board. Upon securing the consent from the Land Control Board, the law requires that you pay what we call duty, and specifically stamp duty, so that the land registrar may then proceed and do a title in your name. That is what has been litigated on 100 times to the Court of Appeal in this country. And if you look at these cases that are before the court, you find situations where people purchased land, they paid, they did a sale agreement, but they didn't get a consent from the Land Control Board and never paid stamp duty, and therefore they didn't secure titles, and therefore they will not be treated in law as landowners because they never completed the process and are not therefore owners of those lands. They go to court, and most of the times they will be told you didn't get consent, you did not pay stamp duty, and therefore you did not acquire land, and that is not your land. That is number one for agricultural land. If you want to acquire a plot in Nairobi, for example, over and above what I have said, doing a sale agreement and paying the seller You're also supposed to get consent from the chief land registrar. You're supposed to pay stamp duty again. And this is so fundamental, because every time a court of law, particularly Environment and Land Court, is dealing with matters of purchase and ownership of land, they would want to know if you got a consent from for purposes of commercial plots, if you got a consent from the chief land registrar and or the land registrar for that matter, and if you paid stamp duty. Stamp duty is so fundamental, because it's not only a requirement of law, but it's also a source of income to the government of Kenya. If you don't acquire that, you will not get a title. If you acquire a title, the title may be nullified for being procedurally and substantively wanting. Yes.
This consent from the chief land registrar, in what form does it come?
A consent is in form of what looks like a letter, a very simple letter. It is not wordy. It has very few words, but it has the signature of the land registrar of the respective district of land administration. We have what we call the district land registrars in various parts of the country. If you're in Machakos, if you're in Kajiado, there is a land registry. The person heading such a registry is called the district land registrar.
So you must have that, and then the title now will also be in your name.
Yes, that is the only
way. So those are two separate documents.
Those are two separate. Those are the consent from the land registrar. Previously, it used to be from the Commissioner of Lands, is separate from the consent from the Land Control Board. A lot of times, the consent from the Land Control Board, and this applies only to agricultural land, is normally signed by the Assistant County Commissioner or signed by the Deputy County Commissioner, who is the de facto chair of Land Control Board.
That's a former DO.
Yes, an Assistant County Commissioner is the former DO. The Deputy County Commissioner is the former DC. Yes.
So what kind of problems are we looking at in Kenya today? Then when it comes to, you talk about this stamp duty paid or not paid. You talk about then acquisition of land that could have belonged to you at some point and then went into the ownership of somebody else. But across board, what are some of the problems now that lead to some of these cases that we see?
Thank you very much. The problems that we have in the land sector, truly speaking, are elephant. I would say they are mammoth. In fact, today, and in the agrarian society, in the society where we come from, most of us grew up knowing that the investments that you invest in are livestock. If you're lucky and you have slightly more money, the next level of investment is in land, and then you move to plots. Kenyans have generally refused to move away from livestock, land, and plots. Not so many of us would want to consider shares in stock exchange, consider deposits in SACCOs, and therefore we have all retreated to land. And today, as we're talking, land in Kenya are matters of do and die. I mean, do or die. If you do not have land, you consider yourself as a dying person. If you have land, you have to fight for it because of these problems that I'm going to explain. Number one is that in Kenya today, we have a situation at the lands offices where land registrars, in collusion with land cartels in this country, and I could quote a litany of examples, are creating duplicate registers. Eric Latif owns a title in Kitengela, for example. You go to the registry in Kajiado, and you find that your title is reflected in the register. If it's a plot, for that matter, we would call it if it's a plot, we would call it the white card. That is the register of your documentation. That is what captures all the transactions leading to your title. But because, as I've said, matters of land are do or die. Those who don't have are dying to have them. Those who do not have are dying to have them. Those who have these parcels of land are also dying to protect them. So the situation is that you have your title. You probably you've fenced your parcel of land in Kitengela, but you've not developed. Overnight, my good sister here because she's taller and networked, approaches the same lands, another register is created and a title issued and even backdated. Subsequently, your register is destroyed. So that when tomorrow you go and do a search, it will come blank and you would be told, sorry, Mr. Latif, we do not have a record of this title. We do not know you. Meanwhile, my sister here would be constructing, doing up a 10-story building, which is coming up very swiftly.
Yeah.
You rush to court. When you rush to court with a copy of your title and maybe a search which was done in the year 2020, she comes flashing not only a title, a certificate of lease, and a search, but also a copy of the white card. And the land registrar would swear an affidavit and say she's the owner. She's the owner of this land. Yeah. What then happens subsequently? Land Registration Act of 2012 says that evidence from the land registrar is conclusive evidence of ownership of land. So who loses? Eric Latif certainly loses the parcel of land, and that is the situation that we have in this country, and it's a very sad situation.
But don't we have chronology? I mean, is it only the white paper that shows the history of this particular piece of land? Wouldn't there be anything else that shows before Ndu purportedly bought this piece of land, this was the owner previously? And this is how the land was demarcated. Kitengela was then 50 by 100s 30 years ago. It was bigger pieces of land. How did this land change from agricultural land to commercial land? How was it subdivided into 50 by 100s? How did Ndu acquire the 50 by 100? Isn't there a record?
Thank you very much. You ask a very valid question. We're talking about cartels, and though it is used figuratively, politically, to mean imaginary enemies, as a land lawyer, I would tell you cartels are people, very powerful people. If they are not high up there in government, they are closer to the big people in government. You would have the history, and as a practitioner in this field, there are so many areas where you can trace the history. For example, you can go to the director of surveys and you call for the initial registry index map. The registry index map would show when this title was created for the very first time. But these cartels are able to manipulate the director of surveys, and that map again is destroyed.
What?
You would also have evidence of payment of rates if you are within the municipality or if you are within the city. You go to the city county government of Nairobi rate section, and you would have a record of how you've been paying rates for the longest time, and this would be evidence that you've been asserting for your ownership. But then again, as has happened in the past, it can be destroyed. You could still go to Kenya Revenue Authority and trace the moment you paid stamp duty, and you may want to know when Madam Ndu paid for a stamp duty, which would have happened later. But we are in a situation where we're relying on manual documents, and that is why I think digitization may help us if it is not arrested by cartels. So historically, it is very easy to trace your ownership. But I'm talking about people who are networked and people who are able to destroy multifaceted documentation that would help you. We wouldn't be having a problem in this country if our institutions were functioning optimally. Let them, forget about them performing excellently, just functioning optimally, because you would go here, you would get history of what you've been paying. You would have a history of when the registry index map was issued, but these documents are destroyed. And you would find a person who acquired land in 1992 helpless and looking as useless as it can be, because we have systems that are not functioning in the country.
So what is the recourse? Because, there must be something. If we're talking about individuals who, I guess the laws of nature, you might lose a document. You might go on one day and the equipment is not working, and then you do not have proof of ownership. And you've already said that, it's difficult in terms of what's happening, because it could be heavy-handed individuals who are on the other side of this. So what is the recourse for these individuals who genuinely, they own this land? Genuinely it is theirs, but for some reason or another they do not have the documentation to show it, even if according to the law documentation is ownership. How do you help? How do these individuals get help?
Thank you very much. The first station, the first port of call to be assisted is to sue the government for compensation. If you have a copy of the title and you have a search, that shows that at some point in time you conducted an investigation and the search showed that you own this land. Under the Land Registration Act, Section 26.
Yeah.
And previously, the Registered Land Act kept 300, which has since been repealed. You could very easily sue the government and get compensation. Of course, as to whether you will get that compensation from the government, whether it's 10 million, 20 million, or 50 million sooner, is a different thing altogether. Because when you sue government, it's like you're opening a can of worms. It will take you several kilometers. It will take you several struggles for the government to be compensated. But one option really, if the government was functioning, would be to get compensation from the government. That is option number one. Option number two, and this is doable, I have tried it before, is to go the direction Mr. Latif was talking about. Number one, go to the registry index map at the director of surveys. When was it opened? In whose name was the mutation done? You go to the rating offices in the respective county governments, and it would be shown clearly that you've been paying rates. You could still go to the Ministry of Lands and show that I paid stamp duty several years. So it's not a difficult task to prove. The only problem is if these cartels decide that they will make sure that Ndu is done and done completely, and they go into these offices.
Like
and,
Ndu could go to heaven.
Yes, I hear nowadays that
It's an option.
Going to heaven is an option of resolving problems. So it's something that is possible to be resolved. It's resolvable. The only problem is that it would require quite some resources. Litigation in court against the government, or going to offices, camping in offices. And I would say, Latif and Madam Ndu, that our offices in this country have to be pushed. Thank you.
Sounds like there's no recourse.
Yeah. So there is no recourse. There's nothing you can do. Because if you had previously told us that documentation is, according to the law, documentation is proof of ownership.
At the land registry.
At the land registry, if I have documentation, that shows that I am the owner. But we also know from what you've said that it's possible that somebody could have stolen your title, it could have been lost, but you're not able to prove that. So if you have the short end of the stick, you have the short end of the stick. There's nothing you can do.
And in fact, you'll be labeled the one who's trying to steal this piece of land.
Yeah.
Indeed, the situation as it were is very dire. I am banking on the digitization that is ongoing.
Okay.
But then again, as I have said, there's one thing that we need to do, and I think this is going to be the silver bullet. We go for fraudsters who are outside government. We deal with people who forge documents who are out there. We deal with land grabbers who are out there. We have never dealt decisively with government officers who collude to destroy maps, to destroy registers at the Ministry of Lands. We need to deal with these people a little bit ferociously.
Just as harshly.
Yes,
In fact, those ones, you don't give them the first two options. Third option only.
You give them the third option, yes. And we are quoting a very serious authority on this. The third option is coming from the highest authority in the land.
Bas.
Yes.
The survey of Kenya. Right, when you talk about land, we only just think of the land registry, but we also do not many times think about the survey of Kenya and the importance of the surveys and the maps that the survey of Kenya holds. Just tell us briefly about that and how important they are.
Thank you very much, Latif and Madam Ndu. The Directorate of Survey is very, very important. And the other day, the Law Society of Kenya, Institute of Surveyors of Kenya, Kenya Bankers Association, and the Ministry of Lands had a memorandum on matters of georeferencing. If there is no survey that has been done in this country, there is no land. I mean, you can't own any land. Before a title is issued, there has to be a survey. There has to be specification on where this parcel of land is. And I tell my clients every day that before you purchase a parcel of land, get a surveyor, go to the ground, purchase registry index map from the Directorate of Survey. Let the beacons be identified on the ground. Let the surveyor try to imagine out where this parcel of land is, and once that has been done, then for sure you know that the parcel of land is there. So even even before you start imagining that you can acquire a parcel of land, you have to engage a surveyor. That is a professional who deals with the land on the ground. Extremely important. So matters of georeferencing, matters of mutation, matters of survey, matters of registry index maps are extremely important for any person who wants to invest in land as a homeowner or as a person who deals in land. So to the listeners of Spice FM this morning, before you purchase any land, make sure you have a professional surveyor who would go to the ground, inspect the parcel of land that you intend to purchase, pick out the beacons. If the beacons are not there, then ensure that they are fixed. If the land has never been surveyed, it means there is no land. And that is as easy as it can be. And
you realize that many people buy land, just on paper. So this land buying company has gone to Malindi, it has bought 40 acres of land, it's subdividing and it's selling plots. They have serviced them. There's Stima Iko Barabara ya Maram, and there's access road. And in fact, there's a police station that's nearby. So it's a very good place. And the future plans for this road is there's going to be a road that comes through this area. And people buy land. Are you saying that each of these people who intend to buy a plot and pay over 10 installments of 100,000 shillings each should first of all take a surveyor down to that piece of land, wherever? Because now we are buying land. We are sitting here and we are buying land in Mararal.
Thank you very much, Latif. I think it's extremely important, and I think listeners and viewers ought to understand this. Number one, this marketing that is being done on the media is very good. It's only good to the extent that the person who is marketing wants to do quick sales. But if you are a person who wants to purchase a parcel of land, if you want to invest in a retirement home, and that is where most of us are headed to, the first thing you must do is to request for a copy of the parent title. Whether the advertisements that are being done are glamorous, whether they are mouth-watering, whatever they could be, make sure that you have a copy of the parent title. Conduct an official search. Nowadays in Nairobi, you do it digitally. If you're outside Nairobi, do an official search at the Ministry of Lands, that is at the houses in the respective counties. That is number one. Let a surveyor subsequently conduct a search on the ground to ensure that what is in the title, because sometimes somebody brandishes a title. Sometimes you're brandishing a title and telling people this parcel of land is in Machakos, but when you go to the ground, you discover that it is on top of another parcel of land with a different number. That is to say, you're purchasing their space, and their space somewhere up there does not belong to an individual. It belongs to the government, and above the government, I think, is probably God.
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 8. It's Thursday, the 31st day of August, 2023. Our Justice Thursday conversation today is on matters land and law. Land advocate Kip Koech Ngetich is our guest. And just listen keenly and make sure that you're careful. Meanwhile, let's prepare for the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. It's coming back this year.
Yes, it is. It's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event, and it's back this October for the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Are you running? Are you getting ready for this event? It's on the 29th of October, and 20 years of running will be celebrated. Imagine 20 years.